Cbc Evening News.
Good evening to you. I am Ryan Broom with this Friday, September 29th edition of the CBC Evening News. In our top story, construction work will begin on the multi-million-dollar Hyatt Hotel in Bay Street in a matter of weeks. This revelation from Minister of Tourism, Richard Seeley.
Planning approval has been given for the downtown Hyatt. Construction is expected to commence, as I understand it, in another couple of weeks. And that too will give us 220 rooms and employ 250 people on completion.
Minister Seeley was the featured speaker of this week's Astor B. Watts Lunchtime Lecture. The construction of the Hyatt is just one of the tourism projects coming on stream. He also revealed that work had begun on the foundation of Sam Lor's Castle, and construction of the new Sandals Royal property was on schedule for completion in December.
The projects, of course, represent perhaps close to $1 billion in investments. And we reckon on completion, if you add up all of those numbers I gave you, we are talking 4,700 people who may be employed. Now, 2,300 rooms would increase our room inventory by over 40%. And it is estimated that by 2020, we would have 800,000 long-stay tourists coming to Barbados, and the revenue will move from $1.1 billion to $1.5 billion.
In more tourism-related news, the Barbados Tourism Product Authority says Barbadians are reluctant to explore the island's attractions as they believe they're only for tourists. Chief Executive Officer of the BTPA, Dr. Kerry Hall, wants this mindset to change.
When we talk to our people who come to our training sessions and we take them out on an island tour, that's the first time they've ever been to Harson's Cave. That's the first time they've ever been to the Signal Station. And when we ask them why, they say because it's for the tourists. Barbadians actually feel we've done such a good job, and we call them tourist attractions. So in our mind, psychologically, oh, it's for the tourists then. So we at the BTPA say, let's do away with that term, and we're now calling them Barbados treasures that belong to us. And we need to go out and educate ourselves, enjoy them, and then share them with the world.
Dr. Hall also says youth involvement is key to the future of the island's tourism industry. The BTPA is embracing young Barbadians through its I Am Tourism campaign.
Future. If we're talking sustainable tourism, the only way tourism will be sustainable is if we have a tourism industry for present and future generations. And we have not engaged our children, our school children, primary or secondary, in the manner that we should have in the past, so we have moved swiftly to rectify that. And we've already started in the schools. They have received us with open arms. There's a level of great excitement, and we need to educate because we find there's a dearth of knowledge in Barbados, about our history, about our culture, our way of life, our traditions that are quickly dying because of the extreme cultural penetration that we're seeing with the infiltration from internet, from cable TV, etc. And our very culture and traditions and way of life are currently under threat, particularly for Generation X.
In other news, Chairman of the Caribbean Broadcasting Corporation, Peter Earle, has reiterated the corporation committed to pay outstanding increments but never agreed to increase salary scales. This is a strike action that the corporation entered day 3 with about 50 out of the 246 members of staff on the picket line. The chairman's comments came during a press conference held to make the corporation's position clear on the disputed issues. Mr. Earle said CBC placed on the table the payment of outstanding increments from July 2013 to July 2017. He noted that he was assured CBC could pay them only if the parent ministry agreed to certain proposals, along with the corporation generating additional revenue.
It was on that basis, therefore, that we agreed to pay the increments, and the figure of $102,000 was put on the table, and that figure did not include going over the top of the scale. I sought clarification from Sir Roy at the second last meeting that we attended at the Labor Department. I sought clarification on a one-on-one basis in the corridor, going over the top of the scale, and he assured me that there was going to be no going over the top of the scales, and that we would talk about the scales at a later date.
Mr. Earle stresses that any agreement to go over the top of the scale means the CBC would have agreed to a salary increase for those affected workers when there was no proposal for such. He reminded that Section 20C of the CBC Act, Chapter 276, says no salary in excess of such sums as a minister may determine and notify in writing to the corporation shall be assigned to any post without the prior approval of the minister.
There are implications for going over the top of the scale. There are implications because it means that the parities that existed before would no longer exist. There are implications because the job categories around these positions would simply change. And where there were differences, the gap would have been widened. I hope that this matter is resolved as soon as possible and that we would be in a position to rebuild CBC. Indeed, based on our strategic plan, there are a number of initiatives that, if properly and successfully implemented, will see an increase in revenue.
And veteran trade unionist and General Secretary of the Unity Workers Union, Caswell Franklin, is also weighing in on the ongoing impasse involving the CBC and the BWU. Mr. Franklin says he does not believe the BWU is being a responsible union in the dispute and that the union only wants to show its might rather than being right. He says there should be no dispute over the increments issued, which was negotiated.
You cannot ask to give people 4 increments at the level when you reach the top of your scale. The value of an increment when you reach the top of your scale is 0. 4 times 0, Sarai, is 0. So that's what they got. That's what you asked for. Stop this nonsense, and then you have real issues. People will support you, but you cannot now then turn around and ask other people to come out and support you mindlessly, because that's what the Water Authority is doing.
Mr. Franklin adds that the actions like those being taken by the BWU have hurt the union movement's image over time and resulted in some unions continuing to lose upset members.
I'm not telling people to leave their union. I'm telling them to hold the union to a higher standard. Their behavior, that is one of the reasons why our country is sinking, is that the unions have been doing a lot of foolishness for too long. And you have to have responsible trade unionism right now. They're not being responsible.
In other news, Barbados has lifted the ban on poultry and poultry products from the United Kingdom. Commercial importers and members of the public are now free to import live birds, hatchling eggs, and fresh frozen and chilled poultry meat and products, including table eggs. The ban was on since December last year. The move by the Ministry of Agriculture, Food, Fisheries and Water Resource Management follows the UK's declaration that it's free from the highly pathogenic avian influenza. Importers may now apply to the Ministry of Agriculture's Veterinary Services Department for permits to import poultry and poultry products from the UK. Barbadians are, however, being reminded a ban still remains on the importation of poultry and poultry products from other countries in the European Union. And in other news, a St. James school has been recognized for its commitment to stamping out bullying in Barbados. 3 years after setting up a special committee to tackle the issue, the school is reporting success. Sharika Griffith has that story.
The Frederick Smith Secondary School is on a mission to become the first bullying-free school in Barbados. This morning, the school was recognized for its efforts as it was named the Obvious Bullying Prevention Program's School of the Year. The announcement was made during a ceremony in the school auditorium after the unveiling of an anti-bullying mural designed by students Renardo Wickham and Kaya Dial. To mark the achievement, the school was presented with a plaque by Associate Director of the Safe and Humane Schools Obvious program, Jane Reese. The program was introduced at the Frederick Smith School a few years ago to tackle problems with bullying. Have you ever been bullied?
Yes, please. I was asked for money and I told the girl no, and then she keep coming back and I keep saying no. Then upon a time she told me that she will get children to come and beat me.
How did that make you feel?
Frightened.
Since then, Chairman of the committee Simeon Nichols says they've had some success in reducing reported cases.
The children have been very receptive in the case, whereas they now have a voice, an ear, a committee inside the school that they can come to, because lots of them are bullied outside of the school. And then, they go off, they don't have anybody to speak to, parents are not at home sometimes to listen to them, And so when they come back into the school the next day, then they can come and say, well, they have been bullied.
According to Mr. Nichols, the school has been using several avenues to disseminate the messages to students.
All the teachers are sensitized as to the bullying program, and they pass on the information to the children. We have posters, we have flyers, we have books, we have information, and most of the time on morning at assembly, the message is sent across by the principal or the deputy principal or whoever is taking prayers that particular morning.
Meanwhile, the students tell us that name calling is the most prevalent type of bullying they encounter.
When somebody speaks to you in an unwell manner, it actually shuts you down sometimes. So technically, bullying is wrong.
So will you be taking a public stand against bullying?
Yes, for sure.
The ceremony concluded with performances by well-known entertainers Peter Ram and Marsville. Positive messages were also conveyed in song by former student Jane Small and the duo Lava Lamp, a dramatic piece by Adrian Green, and an energetic dance by the Multifarious Dance Group. Sharika Griffith, CBC News.
Thanks, Sharika. Well, we take a pause here, but we'll have more news after the break.
Too big.
He wants to grow up to be a superhero.
How about that?
I just want him to grow up to be healthy, but he was falling behind on the growth curve. A normal diet alone wasn't enough, so his pediatrician recommended 2 Pediasure per day. Each bottle has 7 grams of protein and 25 essential vitamins and minerals. Tastes good, right? It fits now, huh? He's not just gaining weight, he's catching up.
2 Pediasure per day is clinically shown to help gain weight in just 8 weeks. Pediasure, gain on.
Honey, this kitchen needs painting.
Why not the whole house?
We're hitting the jackpot at Berger Paints.
Enter to win free paint in one of 7 prizes in the Anson McCall Lucky 7 jackpot worth $140,000. Just spend $100 at Brighton Stokes, Brighton's Express and Stationery, Brighton's Insurance Standard, MQI, Berger Paints, or Consolidated Finance. Enter your code online at www.ansonlucky7jackpot.com for your chance to win. See website for full details.
Thursdays just got beefed up on Morning Barbados. That's right, now we partner with the BADMC to do something for beef's sake. Learn more about quality Bajan beef, the Carmitas brand, and how you can enjoy it from the farm to your fork. If it's the right cut you're looking for, then for beef's sake, watch Morning Barbados every Thursday from 6:45 a.m. It's the beefiest 10 minutes on TV. Brought to you in association with the BADMC.
Welcome back. Well, youth leaders want the voices of young Barbadians heard at a higher level. A resolution was tabled in the Barbados Youth Parliament proposing that consideration be given to membership of the Barbados Youth Development Council on the social partnership. Senator after senator put forward their cases for the government and opposition sides during debate on the issue of sustainable development. Independents also took part. A leader of government business, Graham Bell, says youth participation in key sectors can be beneficial to the country.
Are tech-savvy people who can truly change the dynamics of the healthcare sector, the transportation sector. Specifically in the healthcare sector, the burden of the QEH and its mandate to provide healthcare to our citizens, and of course the associated polyclinics. We are not fully utilizing our technological resources that we see within our youth. Our last debate surrounded the topic of mental health and the stigma attached.
And leader of opposition business, Dia Paris, suggested the resolution was a waste of time and resources. He urged the Youth Parliament to call on government to provide grants to the private sector, allowing them to expand their business.
Do you just care about the personal lives of the youth, or do you care about the sustainability of Barbados? That is my question, Mr. President. Because it's fine and dandy if we want the vision of 1 degree per house, but clearly they're leaving the house, they're leaving the island, they're leaving the region. So what are we to do? Social, yes. Make sure that they know how to vote, even though they won't vote here. Make sure they know how to use their political tongues, even though they will speak in Spanish somewhere across the world. That is the vision that the government has for Barbados. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the rankest of liberalism. It is the rankest of socialism, and it cannot stand to be.
And Ade O'Neill wants Barbados to move away from what he calls a handout culture. He says it breeds discontent and laziness.
Anything used with the slogan "for the poor" is often unchallenged and unexamined. The belief that social services should be a handout rather than a means of social empowerment has resulted in an unsustainable reality that we will dearly pay for. The hope of getting a government house, free tertiary education, a government job, of gaining money for a day, blind some to the fact that they will lose more on that day and for a future. Mr. President, we must dare to redefine our lives and rid ourselves of this give me more mentality.
Rashana Jones supports having the BYDC on the social partnership. She says the option should also be offered to the Barbados Association of Retired Persons.
Because we want something that is not focused on the people who are further up in society, or the head of this and the head of that. But we also need to represent the people, the normal day-to-day people. We need to have people saying, well, you need to focus on this. And it's not, Barbados is not supposed to be just about a certain amount of people. It's about everybody. It must be inclusive. And including these two entities into the social partnership, this would do that.
The resolution was later passed with 7 voting in favor and 4 against. And Barbadians seem to be dismissive toward international agreements on human rights, especially as it relates to homosexuality. This is among findings of a study done by Dr. Latoya Lazarus, temporary research fellow at the Sir Arthur Lewis Institute for Social and Economic Studies, or SALIS's, at the UWI. She presented details of some of that research at a forum with the theme Christianity, Same-Sex Relationships and Social Justice at the St. Michael's Cathedral.
In order for human rights ideas to be effective, they need to be translated into local terms and situated within local contexts of power and meanings. However, the remaking of a global discourse into a vernacular, as may be expected, is not easily achieved. For one, the global and the local are often presented as antitheses of each other, a divide between rights and culture, or civilization and those cultural people.
Dr. Lazarus adds that the church must answer some questions to start confronting the issues surrounding Christians, homosexuality, and fairness.
Can religion play a role in promoting and interpreting human rights, including those relating to sexual and reproductive health rights? Or is it an impediment to the promotion and interpretations of such rights? Third, can churches afford to be left out of or remain marginal and obstructive to serious dialogues about human rights within our region, including those dialogues and processes that challenge our ideas of morality and selfhood? And fourth and finally, more broadly, how do our experience of lived religion continue to shape the everyday lived experiences of citizenship within our borders?
Some health news now. The hospital's head of hematology is appealing to Barbadians to give blood routinely, and not just when someone they know is in need. According to Dr. Theresa Laurent, many of the hospital's services like transfusions and chemotherapy are dependent on the availability of blood. At present, there's a small group of people who give blood regularly, but Dr. Laurent would like to see that number increase.
We want that an individual who comes to donate blood, that individual will then say, I will come every 3 months and donate blood, so I'm going to be a voluntary blood donor. I talk about blood donation a lot because of my passion, that side of hematology. And it's really something I would like to see us achieve one of these days in Barbados, where we have 100% voluntary blood donors, meaning I don't have to call you except it's a mass casualty. And you just come, you have an appointment, and every day we have a certain number of units.
Dr. Laurent made the comments after accepting a donation of a vital signs monitor. The equipment, which costs just under $8,000, is expected to improve efficiencies within the department.
Pulse and the patient's oxygen level. And then you also have attached to the top, there is a thermometer. And so the nurse can stick the thermometer in, put on the cuff, put on the probe, and turn to another patient and do something else. The equipment was donated by the Myeloma, Lymphoma, and Leukemia Foundation of Barbados.
President Hyacinth Grimes says this monitor will complement the one which the association had previously donated.
We've donated a Welsh Allen monitor previously, and we wanted a second one because, as you heard Dr. Lawrence says, there are two sections, and we need to have two monitors because if a patient collapses in a section, then you have other patients will have to be left behind where you attend to the person who has collapsed.
Regional news is next. Stay with us.
Attention all Barbadians, here is some good news. Barbados Lumber Company, Waterford and Speightstown will cushion the impact of the NSRL with 20% discount store-wide this Friday, September 29th and Saturday, September 30th. So march on over and get your lumber, plywood, paints, domestic hardware and other items at bargain prices. Don't miss it. 20% discount store-wide at Barbados Lumber Company this Friday and Saturday. This offer does not apply to cement and already reduced items. Terms strictly cash.
Barbados Lumber Company.
Dominica's Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit has described as unfounded, baseless and malicious claims suggesting political interference in the distribution of relief supplies and food in the aftermath of Hurricane Maria. An upset Skerrit called for an end to the spreading of misinformation, saying it could undermine the future of Dominica and Dominicans. He made it clear that his administration has not commandeered any supplies from any regional or international agencies.
They came here, they have the boats, they have the helicopters. They had the means to deploy and to deliver those supplies. We really have to stop this foolishness. Because the only people who will be affected by this are the people of Dominica. And the most vulnerable in our country. The people whose homes are not insured. People who do not know where they're sleeping tonight. The people who do not know whether when Monday comes they'll have a job. Who do not know how they're going to pay their mortgages.
And Mr. Skerrit is to address the nation tonight. He is expected to bring Dominicans up to date before he ventures overseas to meet with international partners. Prime Minister Skerrit also called for cooperation from the public. He says there are too many sightseers on the roads and too much traffic in the capital on major roadways.
This is hampering the efforts of the authorities to clear the roads, to restore our power to certain parts of the country, to expand and extend the coverage of telecommunication services. I mean, Digital reported to me today that they just cannot work because there are too many vehicles in the city. The heavy equipment cannot get through the city. They cannot get their supplies and material to the points needed. The same for Dominic. The same for Flo. The same for all of the heavy equipment.
A U.S. Navy helicopter rescued 2 civilians whose private aircraft crashed into the Caribbean Sea off the coast of Dominica while en route from Antigua to Guadeloupe. The 2 were being treated aboard the USS Wasp, the Navy amphibious assault ship that is assisting with relief efforts off the island. The survivors, both males in their early 50s, are from Guadeloupe and Antigua. Over in Guyana, several members of the police narcotics branch are under arrest for a quantity of missing narcotics from the Criminal Investigations Department. The public security minister is once again bowing his head in disappointment over the conduct of law enforcement agents. Javon Vickery has the story.
The now unaccounted for cocaine had been tendered as evidence against convicted drug mule 31-year-old Travis Mendonca, who was sentenced to 3 years imprisonment for trafficking in narcotics. The Office of Professional Responsibility has taken over the investigation as several members of the narcotics branch of the Ghana Police Force remain in custody for questioning. On Thursday, when asked by Nightly News about his thoughts on the incident, Minister of Public Security Kamraj Ramjatan said that while he's appalled that the incident has yet again shed a negative light on the force, it also brings to light the insensitivity of some members of the force.
I have my suspicions. I don't want to make them public. But we have some elements in the police force that are, if they're not totally reckless, they're so negligent that you have to put blame on some of them. Because we do have some systems in place, but I suppose it's being violated too often. And that is why we want a a property room where it will be proper record keeping as to who had it, if you had opened the suitcase, whether the cocaine was in the suitcase, all of that will have to be done here.
Acting Police Commissioner David Ramnarayan had confirmed to the media that the cocaine, approximately 2 kilograms, was discovered missing Tuesday night. Minister Ramjatan, however, noted that steps have already been put in place to ensure enhanced accountability of evidence.
And it will be videoed. As you see here, we have a video that is going to video all of that. So no policeman could come and say, well, I left it on the desk and somebody must take them out and that kind of thing. It's brutal what happened there.
But you said what stage is the investigation right now?
It's an ongoing stage. I don't know how many people are questioned, but I think a number of them have been questioned.
The missing cocaine was found in the possession of Mendonca 2 Mondays ago when he was intercepted by the police while en route to the United States. Police stated that during the search of the suitcase belonging to Mendonca, 1,828 grams of cocaine was unearthed.
Trinidad and Tobago is to introduce new laws to address corruption, despite government acknowledging legislation alone is not enough. Attorney General Faris Al-Arawi says state institutions must be able to support this country's anti-corruption laws. Janelle Bernard tells us more.
Attorney General Faris Al-Arawi says this country's state institutions must be strengthened in order to support the current laws that are geared toward addressing crime. He says the laws governing the prevention of corruption can do little without proper systems in place.
We need greater penalties, we need more offenses, we need a law for this, we need a law for that. But if you don't fix the system of justice and the system of public accountability, what is the law useful for?
Speaking at an anti-corruption conference earlier today, the AG says government is committed to stamping out corruption.
It is the main plank because it is for us the main issue which will ensure our survival. Why? The money spent in corruption can easily feed all of our people many times over.
He says government is taking steps to amend the Companies Act,
which will treat with a mandatory obligation to disclose beneficial ownership. You have to say who the beneficial owner of your company shares are.
And he is proposing amendments to the Registration of Deeds Act.
We propose to criminalize the failure to register your deed. Why? Because of an abuse of trust. Why? Because there's no mandatory provision in our laws that a trust must be done by way of deed and therefore registered.
Sports news is just ahead with Mark Seal, but first, a tip from Cooperators General Insurance.
This tip of the day is brought to you by Cooperators General Insurance Company Limited. Insurance the way you want it to be.
Insurance is the most widely used method of financing risk. Many persons only appreciate the importance of insurance when they suffer loss or damage to their personal property or possessions. Cooperators General Insurance, ensuring you are protected during this hurricane season.